Hello and welcome all. Just like to start off by giving a brief introduction to myself. I'm Colin Dempsey. I'm a final year student in Interiors and Architectural Technology and Wood at the University of Limerick. And just before I start, I suppose if you could have a pen and paper at hand, just because there'll be a few short activities to carry out during this presentation. Okay, so I suppose just to start off with the aim, and the focus of this presentation is to equip you with the necessary skills and knowledge to become effective agents of change in technology education. So I hope then to shine a new light on the ways in which your current practice is undertaken in relation to sustainability and development. Okay, so moving on then, we're just going to start off with the Sustainable Development Goals. And my first question is then, when you hear about Sustainable Development Goals, what comes to mind? If you want to just pause for a second and just jot down your initial thoughts or what pops to mind. So welcome back. So maybe you think of the bright color wheel, which represents the 17 different goals or even specific goal that resonated with you. Perhaps you think about the Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg and her dedicated activism, which has gotten the whole world, everyone from young students to politicians, to stop and reflect about climate change. Okay, so moving on then to what are the Sustainable Development Goals? So Sustainable Development Goals is a set of 17 global goals provided by the UN to unite the global community in order to work towards a better and more sustainable future for everyone involved. So then moving on to sustainable development again, it's best defined as meeting the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Okay, and I think this is of major importance to us as teachers, as we have such a scope to not only adhere to these sustainable development goals, but to incorporate and work with them within our subject areas and within the school itself, so in our practice. So I'm looking then at understanding these sustainable development goals from a local to a global level. Okay, so starting on a global, international level, these sustainable development goals cover a wide range and a wide spectrum of goals and topics. But likewise, then this can be brought down to a national level within Ireland, then back to even our home and our school, and then back to us as individual. And it's important then to note that this can go both ways. That this is a chain, if you like, and it's a chain reaction. So if we start small, this could go to a global effort, and likewise with the likes of Greta Thunberg and her global effort comes back and resonates at home with us in the individual. So looking then at construction studies, the curriculum. So as you know, it was established in 1984. It was first drafted, and the Leaving Cert Certificate Construction Studies provides students with an introduction to the knowledge and skills involved in construction technology and construction materials and processes. Students develop their ability to communicate ideas and information and to apply accurate observation and scientific investigation through exploring materials and processes. So the syllabus then is broken into three parts. First part being the construction theory and drawings, the practical skills being the second part, and finally then we have coursework and projects. So following on then for the curriculum, I'm going to look at the gaps in the curriculum which I have identified, and in particular then with relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. So the first one being climate change. And my inclusion rationale for why I think climate change needs to play a bigger role in our curriculum is that it's one of the most pressing threats to humankind, animals and plant life on this earth. Closer to home, Ireland is also at risk of these adverse effects, which may lead to a rise in our sea level, more intense storms hitting our coastlines, more rain, increased flooding in our already struggling water systems, water shortages in the summer, and finally changes to our flora and fauna. As the construction industry is one of the world's largest pollutants, it is the role of the educator to inform the student about the environmental sustainability, in particular the importance of sustainable material selection and the impact we have on our surroundings. So I know with the syllabus at the moment, it does touch on areas with climate in relation to material selection and so on. but I've identified being 10 key concepts within this. So what is climate change? Simple definition: the causes and its effects. Global warming, the difference between climate change and global warming, a common misconception that they mean the same thing. Greenhouse gases, so greenhouse effect, and the atmospheric carbon increase, so the humankind. Renewable energy, use of construction materials, so sustainable material selection, and low embodied energy, so transportation, and finally how we can prevent climate change, what we can do as a society. So I have a resource pack which is included at the end of this presentation, where I further break down these key concepts and provide more detailed information. So then, when I was drafting these key concepts, in the back of my mind were these sustainable development goals. So I have identified development goal number 6, clean water and sanitation; 13, climate action; 14, life below water; and then finally 15, life on land, as all having relevant links with this topic of climate change. And we then as teachers have the opportunity to incorporate this climate change in our daily practice, so whether it be our planning or implementing of lessons. So then, continuing on with this gap in curriculum, note that we're just looking at the theory side of things at the moment, is energy supply. So I know that there is elements in our syllabus currently where we look at lighting, we also look at some energy sources, but not to the extent which I feel there's scope for inclusion. So my inclusion rationale then is that energy supply refers to delivery of fuels or transformed fuels to the point of consumption. World energy consumption today contributes to pollution, environmental deterioration, and global greenhouse emissions. Therefore, students, the youth of our society, need to be properly educated on the impact we have and what it is we can do to address this problem. Energy conservation is a central concern to establishing environmental sustainability. The burning of fossil fuels for buildings and their construction is responsible for over half of all energy used in Ireland. Energy supply is a primary focus in both the design and construction of domestic dwellings. It is the role of this subject area to educate students, provide an explanation and detailed analysis of other alternative, sustainable energy sources. So likewise with my climate change, I've included 10 key concepts. So a simple definition of energy supply: renewable and non-renewable energy, the difference between them; fossil fuels, thermal power station examples; solar energy, so photovoltaic panels used in construction; wind energy and turbines; hydro energy and hydroelectric power stations; geothermal energy; pumped storage; the national grid and what it is; and finally passive design, which, as we know, plays a massive role currently in our subject area. So just as I said with the last one, there is further information on these key concepts where I break them down further and provide detailed information. But just if you'd like to pause the screen for a moment and just have a look at this activity, so select and link relevant sustainable development goals associated with this topic. So what I want you to do is, using the 17 goals, just identify some links with this topic. Okay, so welcome back. I've just provided a blank template for you to use in your own time. So you can select the topic with relevance to obviously sustainable development goals and also our subject area and our curriculum. Provide your own inclusion rationale, your own key concepts, and think maybe where you can include these with your lessons. Obviously promoting a culture of sustainable development and providing you the opportunity to instill your own values in what you're teaching. Okay, so as I've looked at the theory and gaps in curriculum, I'm now going to look at coursework and projects. And this is a sample action project which we're currently undertaking in WT 4048, in which it's a final year module in which we were given this problem statement, okay, which would be similar to your design brief. Design and realize a sustainable creative artifact which contributes towards addressing a real world social and environmental issue. The added constraint we had was that half of the material, just note that it could be wood, metal, plastic, etc., used must be upcycled. So 50% of your material selection must be recycled. Okay, so this then provides the opportunity for design thinking diary, which would be similar to a portfolio that you submit for your leaving certificate, where students must present their design thinking and manufacturing processes through a medium of their choice. So it's important to note that their design thinking um, is beyond just simply describing your manufacturing process, but how you came to realize your final design. So here I've included some images, basic images of what some students may come up with for initial ideas perhaps, or even um, final ideas. And then it's just important to know what it is that students are achieving. Okay, so what the goal is behind this project. So obviously sustainable development goals, you're addressing many of them there with that problem statement. So not just the sustainability creative artifact, but also a real world social environmental issue. So as I said, many of these goals are being achieved in one simple problem statement. You're encouraging students to partake in critical thinking, which I'll go into further detail shortly. Likewise, of problem solving. And then students will also get to value the use of recycled materials. And then that's just moving on to experiments. So like with your portfolio, with your coursework, you must include 3 experiments. Students include 3 experiments. So obviously using recycled material, different finishes, and that's associated with recycled material. There's also a lot of experiments that can be carried out with that. So there's a scope for inclusion with that as well. Moving on then to cross-curricular links. Okay, so I suppose it's important to note that through establishing links with other subject syllabi, such as geography, as an example I gave, with energy and the environment, students develop an appreciation for the content being covered and value its use in society. It also facilitates the possibility of collaboration for projects and assignments in which different departments within the school can work together for a common goal, promoting educators to become agents of change. Thus again having a knock-on effect that you can have to instill similar values with other subject areas and other teachers in different disciplines. Group work is a critical element of development education as it facilitates peer teaching, in which students work collaboratively to reach a common goal. Communication networks are also established among students and teachers alike, promoting a positive culture in relation to sustainable development. So you open up networks in which students can talk to teachers, likewise teachers can talk with other teachers, and it's just a knock-on communication network. Again, one more little activity for you. So to brainstorm an assignment or a project facilitating cross-curricular links. So if you'd like to just have a think about maybe some scope in your subject, so your discipline, and other subject areas that a common assignment or project could be facilitated in which both subject disciplines are being used to reach a common goal. So let's just pause there for a moment and brainstorm an activity. Okay, so thanks for coming back there. We have critical thinking. So critical thinking skills can be described as higher order skills, thus requiring ways of thinking that are deeper and more complex than the kind of everyday thinking we use. So Bloom's taxonomy here, as we can see with this pyramid, starts at the bottom with some lower order cognition, going up to the top obviously to our higher order skills. So critical thinking ensures students not only analyze the rationales involved, but appreciate the process occurring. So note that being critical then does not imply being negative. Okay, for some students, the word critical has negative connotations, and they take it to mean that they should only find fault with an idea or a piece of work. Being critical, okay, as teachers we know, means considering things in a balanced and objective way, and using reason and logic, rather than instinct, emotion, or belief to reach a conclusion. Okay, but in order to instill critical thinking with students, you must have obviously create an understanding within them. So either scaffold this or um, incorporate it in simpler form so that students automatically know what it is when it comes to critical thinking. Okay, so moving on then, we've problem-based learning. So one of the primary features of problem-based learning is that it is student-centered. Okay, so through the inclusion of problem-based learning tasks, you ensure students value the work they complete, as they are partly, if not fully, responsible for establishing the success criteria. When generating or setting tasks, ensure you have a reference to sustainable development goals. It is important to scaffold problem tasks to ensure students are achieving attainable learning outcomes or goals. So problem-based learning or PBL process is a continuous cycle. So you present the problem, students define the problem and brainstorm ideas based on prior knowledge. Students engage independent study. Okay, so learner autonomy, independent study, again a critical element. Students share information, engage in peer teaching, group work to work towards a solution. Another critical element, the students present their solution and review what they have learned. So students get self-peer and tutor review of the process, another critical element. Okay, so look beyond teaching towards the exam. Okay, so I challenge you to look beyond simply teaching towards the exam when planning and implementing lessons. Where possible, incorporate sustainable development goals or elements of into each lesson or project. This can range from your practical to your theory lessons or a combination of both. So effective use of readily available accurate resources can aid in incorporating critical elements of development education. So there are resources out there for you to use which will help motivate students in this area, and it's just up to you as an educator and a teacher to familiarize yourself with these resources and stay in tune with them. Okay, so you have the platform to not only become an agent of change, but also instill these values for future generations. As mentioned at the start there, the teacher, we have a massive part to play in achieving these sustainable development goals. Design for sustainability in all aspects of your profession. Okay, so avoid just simply teaching towards the exam. So reflecting on one's own values. So in order to become an active agent of change within the technology classroom, you must practice and adhere to your own set of values. To motivate others, you must practice what you preach in all walks of life. Beyond the classroom walls, this extends not only to the school, but the community as a whole. You must remain open-minded to all information, as this is a complex issue that is ever evolving. You must take the time within your practice to reflect and review, as this is a continuous cycle, as I mentioned. So just to leave you then with this quote from Albert Einstein: we cannot solve our problems within the same thinking we used when we created them. So as teachers, we must adhere and adapt to using different teaching styles and methods in order for students to gain a better understanding. Thank you for your time. Just to quickly go through your resource pack, we have Sustainable Development Goals handout, and also, as mentioned before, I'll go into further detail on climate change and likewise with energy supply. So they are available for you to use. I'd just like to thank you for your time.